Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So another interesting game I found from the German teen league or Schachbundesliga as they call it, from the third round between Gustafsson and Spartak Grigorian. Let's see what happened. Gustafsson had white pieces and he started with d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to c3, bishop goes to b4, and we have a Nimzo-Indian defense. White plays e3, black castles king side, bishop goes to d3, pretty much according to the theory. And now black tries the center with c5, knight from g goes to e2, and black plays d5, further putting pressure on the white center. So now white captures here on d5, e-pawn recaptures, and white plays a3, attacking bishop on b4, forcing black to decide what to do with the bishop. Well, pawn on c5 is still under attack, so black can simply remove the bishop. Bishop captures instead on c3, c-pawn recaptures, and now b6, protecting this pawn on c5. And now white castles king side, black plays bishop to a6, offering the trade of bishops, but white plays f3, protecting this e4 square, preparing e4 pawn push, further striking the center. So black plays rook to e8, counteracting on this e file. White continues with knight goes to g3, further putting pressure here on e4 square. And now black has decided to trade some pieces. Bishop captures on d3, queen recaptures, and now knight goes to c6. So white is about to make the 14th move, and I have found more than 400 games with the same position in the database. So this is a very well known position. Definitely white will try with e4 here, but if white tries with e4 immediately, simply c-pawn captures on d4. If c-pawn recaptures, d-pawn captures on d4, and after f-pawn recaptures, pawn on d4 is twice attacked, is going to be captured. Not that it's losing position for white, but just not something white would want to have. So in the game, white plays bishop goes to b2, which is proposed by the machine and also by the practice. Black continues with rook goes to c8, and now white plays rook from a goes to e1, further supporting this e-pawn, preparing finally this e4 pawn push. Black plays rook goes to c7, preparing either rook to d7 or e7, reinforcing his heavy pieces on these central lines. And now white finally plays this e4, so pawn goes to e4, d-pawn recaptures, f-pawn recaptures, so white has built a very strong center here, and black will definitely try to undermine it. Now knight goes to e5 was played, attacking queen or d3. Of course, d-pawn cannot capture because then queen on d3 is for free. So white continues with queen goes back to d2, and now c-pawn captures on d4, c-pawn recaptures, and knight goes to c4, attacking bishop here on b2, and also pawn on a4. Well, this bishop is also protecting pawn on d4. White doesn't want to lose this very important central piece, so bishop goes back to a1. Now knight can capture pawn on a3 definitely, but if knight captures, then d-pawn is a killer move, targeting this knight on f6, who is also targeted by the rook, so black would only capture with pawn, not with queen, because then queen would be lost. And in this position, let's say black would want to remove this knight. The only square is d7, but then queen to f3 would be played, and this knight is going to be captured, because if black removes the knight, queen to f7 check, king to h8, queen to g7, it would be checkmate. Now in this position, let's say black would make a random move, let's say a5, simply bishop captures on f6, only pawn g-pawn can now recapture, and now knight to h5, threatening with the forking king and rook. There isn't much to be done here, and also queen to g4 with a mating threat to g7 are valid. Even if black would defend with rook to here e5, simply knight would capture here on f6 check, king goes to f8, queen to g4, preventing this final blow. And okay, let's say another random move, b5, simply queen to g8 check, king goes to e7, and after d6 all is done, because if king captures, then queen is for free, and if queen captures, queen to e8 checkmate. Okay, let's go back to our game. So in the game, black plays queen to e7, attacking this pawn on a3 also with queen, but white doesn't care about this pawn. Queen to f2 was played, leaving this a pawn for free, and black indeed captures now pawn on a3, and white continues with queen to f4, attacking rook on c7. And black has decided to continue with rook from c goes to e7. Okay, so we have multiple attacks on this pawn on e4. 3 times is attacked, but is also 3 times defended, but white doesn't care. Knight goes to f5, removing one of the defender of this e4 pawn, and black falls into this trap, so rook captures on e4, rook recaptures, and now rook recaptures. Of course, rook is protected, so queen cannot capture, but white plays queen to g5, threatening checkmate here on g7. Now let's see what black can do. Of course, black can block this g5 with the g6, but then this knight is not protected. Queen captures on f6. True, black recaptures this knight on f5, but then after d5, queen is protected, threatening with checkmate here on g7 or g8, whatever. Black king could try to run to f8, but after queen to h8 check, king could only go to e7, bishop to f6 check. Let's say the d7 or d6. Let's say if king goes to d6, queen to d8 check. And here king could only go to c5, but after queen to c8. Of course, king cannot capture, because if king captures rook to d1, black could of course interfere with a couple of moves, but in the end it would be checkmate. So here in this position, king could only go to b5 or b4, doesn't matter. After king to b4, rook to b1 check, king could only go to a5. After, let's say, king to a4, we have rook to a1, and there goes his queen. Of course, the other option would be to defend this g7 square with knight to e8. Now g7 square is protected, but after knight to h6 is check, pawn cannot capture because it's pinned by the queen, and after king to f8, rook to f7, it's checkmate. If, however, king goes to h8, we would simply have knight to f7 check. King could only go back to g8, but after queen to d5, and here white prepares this deadly discover attack. Of course, after knight to f6, we have this modern mate pattern. Knight goes to h6 check. If king goes to f8, queen to f7 checkmate, king to h8, and queen to g6 check. Knight captures, and knight to f7 checkmate. If, however, black would try with queen to e7, simply knight to h6 check. We have double check again. King goes to h8, queen to g8, again checkmate. If, however, queen goes to f8, again knight to h6 check, king to h1, rook captures on f8 checkmate. Either way, black is lost. So in the game, black has decided to play queen to f8, protecting this g7 square, and now white continues with the attack. d5 was played, preparing to capture this knight on f6, who is protected by the pawn, but the pawn is pinned by the queen, so very bad position for black. Actually, black tries with knight goes to e3, preparing rook to g4, implicitly also defending this pawn, but actually here white could try to capture this knight, because after bishop captures, of course, black could play with rook to g4, but then we would have knight to h6 check, king could only go to h8, and after bishop captures on g7, king cannot go anywhere, and queen could only capture this bishop on g7, queen to d8 check, and now of course queen cannot go to f8, but queen should go to g8. Of course, knight could capture with the decisive advantage, but here we have made a couple of moves. Knight should go to f7 checking, queen cannot capture because it's pinned by this queen, so king could go to g7, queen to f6 check, and now the only square left is f8, but after knight to d6 discover attack, queen could only defend, and after queen captures, it's checkmate. Okay, so this capturing on f6 was probably not so easy combination even for the grandmasters. In the game, white plays knight goes to h6 check. Of course, pawn is pinned, so king could only go to h8, and now rook captures here on f6, threatening with f7, later with checkmate here on g7, and of course g-pawn cannot capture, because if g-pawn captures, queen to f6 checking, queen defends, queen captures, it's checkmate. So in the game, black tries with queen to c5, yeah, preparing discover attack, or maybe even queen to c1. So yeah, white has to be careful. Rook to f7 doesn't work. Queen goes to c1 checking, to f2, queen to f1, king to g3, and queen to g2, it's checkmate. And it doesn't matter if white tries to create an escape square with the h4, simply knight goes to g4, discover attack. It's going to be checkmate in a couple of moves. So from this moment, white has to deliver only check, and white has found the correct continuation in the game. White plays knight captures on f7 check, king can only go to g8, and now knight goes back to h6 check, king can only go to h8. And now simply this bishop from a1 is very deadly. It's going to be active very soon, but this rook is on the way. So we have a clearance. Rook goes to f8 check. Of course, queen can only capture. And now we have another stunning blow. The last stunning move, bishop captures on g7 check. Now king cannot go anywhere, and only queen can capture on g7 now. But now white played queen to d8 check. Of course, black can delay the mate for a couple of moves. Let's say rook to e8, queen captures. If a queen goes to f8 or g8, doesn't matter. Let's say queen to g8 is going to be checkmate. And realizing that all is lost, in this position, Spartak Grigorian resigned the game. So I hope you like this game. I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.